I do not think I'm going to win this battle for the Albert Einstein hair for much longer. Carrie's been watching me go to sleep at night. And look what someone from church gave me this morning. I don't know if this is to help my effort or to disencourage it. I'm not sure. Sunday drive home, Jesus turns water into wine at Cana today. Oh, what a text. There's so many things in this text to think about. But one of the most amazing ones is that there's a prayer that's part of the wedding rite. And it says, it's talking about how Jesus, in fact, it's at the address at the beginning of the wedding. It says, Jesus blessed marriage at his presence and first miracle at Cana in Galilee. So that Jesus being there we say this the same thing with our pro-life conversation, that Jesus being in the womb sanctifies the womb, and we say it at the burial, Jesus being in the grave sanctifies the grave, so that we're basically like whatever Jesus touches, he makes it holy. And so Jesus is at this wedding, he makes weddings holy. He authorizes weddings. He says this is a good thing for husband and wife to take hold of one another and become, for man and woman, I suppose, to take hold of one another and become husband and wife. He blesses it. Even though he was never married, he was at this wedding, and that is like a tacit approval of the institution. That's how we think of it. It's really great. And there's maybe just two simple things today that occur to me and these they both made their way into the sermon. Well, I'm sure in the sermon they made more sense. And the first is, can you imagine this? Imagine this scene unfolding 10 minutes after Jesus turns water into wine. And the mother of a Pharisee is at the wedding. And she goes to wash her hands according to the law, the Jewish rites of purification. And she goes over to the water jugs and she sees that they're out of water. And she goes to tell her son, they have no water. And the little Pharisee doesn't know what to do. I mean, half the miracle is not just that Jesus provided wine, but that he got rid of the water for purification. The Jews had all these ritual washing ideas. It wasn't just to wash your hands so that they didn't have dirt on them. I mean, there was a whole big ornate thing about how many times to pour the water over the hands and turn them this way and that, and all this kind of rigmarole, which was just legalism. And the whole thing stood for legalism. So Jesus will take this up, fuller later on, because the Pharisees come to Jesus and they say to him, your disciples don't wash their hands. And Jesus says explicitly, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out of him, what comes out of the heart. What goes in, comes in and goes out into the gutter, no problem, says Jesus. But it's what comes out of the heart that makes a man unclean. So Jesus takes on these water pots theologically in an argument in another place, but here he's just taking them on practically. He replaces the legalisms of the Pharisees with the joy of the new covenant, with his abundant kindness in the overflowing fats of wine. Just great. That's one thing. And then the other thing that I think about as interesting is that is this scene. Imagine St. John the Apostle the evangelist, who's there. He was one of the 6 disciples that Jesus had at this point. And he was tasting this wine at the wedding feast, this good wine. I mean, this is part of the, Jesus just doesn't turn water into wine, he turns water into good wine, so that the mash of the feast is like, kind of, he's inappropriate with the bridegroom. What have you done? You saved the good till now. Most people put out the good stuff till everyone's well watered. You messed it up. You saved all. You had a secret stash of the best wine. So they're astonished at how good the wine is. So here's what I think of: old Pastor John, who was in Ephesus, he was the bishop of Ephesus after Timothy, serving all those congregations there. He's watching over the seminary that Paul had established in Ephesus. He's looking after Mary, the mother of Jesus. He's over, he's a bishop. He would have gone around to people's houses as a pastor, like a pastor does. He would have gone and visit people, and they would have fed him a meal and given him a glass of wine. And I just have this picture of old Pastor John with his big grizzly white beard, skinny from his time in exile and all this stuff. And he'd take a glass of wine and he'd remember the wine from the wedding feast 60, 70 years ago, the wine that Jesus made. And he would take a sip, and then he must have thought, not as good. Not as good. This isn't the wine that Jesus makes. And his mind would have been right back on that moment there at the wedding of Cana, when he's just a fresh disciple of this rabbi called Jesus, and he had no idea all the things that lay ahead of him. But there he was, watching this first miracle, and faith begins to dawn, John says, and his disciples believed in him. So we see the dawn of faith in the disciples as they taste this water turned to wine. How wonderful. That the glory of Jesus is manifest in joy and in gladness. That's good. That's wedding at Cana. Sunday drive home.
Get to making with jive, boy, say shine. When it hits you, yes, 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 you shine. When it hits you.